It's very much just, we've talked about it before, it's starting small. Don't try and do 2 hours every single day. But that's where I feel that it's manageable just to focus on 26 minutes. And then you can slowly improve on that. And if it's somebody that hasn't done anything, get out and go for a walk for 26 minutes. And you can even put your earbuds in and listen to an inspiring podcast or something that's helping your mind work and to grow, and you've got it all done inside of 26 minutes.
Welcome to the M26FIT podcast, where we explore the connection between having a strong mind and a strong body.
Hi guys, welcome to the M26 podcast. I'm Conrad Leisman, your guest host for today, and we have a very special guest. It is the founder of the M26 podcast himself, Magnus Olson. Welcome, Mags.
Mate, thank you.
How you feeling? Are you nervous being on the other side of this?
Mate, no, I've learned that I'm not nervous, mate. I'm just excited.
Very good, mate. Well, I am, mate, this is a ripper. I'm actually a little bit nervous myself, mate, because I've been really keen to hear your story for a long time. I'm used to actually seeing you on a Friday, so it's a bit different, mate, catching up with you on a Tuesday morning. But, mate, let's get straight into it because I'm really pumped for this. Now, I've known you for a while. You are the fittest 50-plus-year-old I think I know. How old are you actually, mate?
Mate, I'm 55.
55. Very good, mate. Well, we all know that you are you're super disciplined, you're structured, you've got amazing mental strength. You're also a very successful businessman. I'm going to dive into all that, mate, today. But I want to just give the listeners a quick snapshot, an overview of your life for 3 to 4 minutes, mate. Take us back from baby Magnus, where it all started, to 55-year-old Magnus. Let's go.
You give me a bit of a rap. Where it all started. So, born in Sweden, moved to Australia with my just immediate family when I was 5 years old. We went straight to Brisbane, being a Brisbane boy, just working class, public school education. Didn't really enjoy school too much, so left at the first opportunity after grade 10 when I was 15 to start a carpentry apprenticeship. And so I was a carpenter for 15 years. So then when I was 30, I wanted to get off the tools, and so I went and worked for a commercial construction company as a site manager, and then moved into the office and did contract admin, estimating, project management, and got promoted to construction manager and then managing director. Stayed there for 18 years. In 2018, I left and wanted to get to the next level and play property developer, chasing a dream. So did Mullany, which is
2018,
something,
2018.
And then, so that took 4 years, a bit over 4 years to finish the last stage, and then
we'll talk more about that as well a bit later.
And then then M26, I do some executive coaching as well, and some consulting still in the construction space. And
when did M26 start?
M26 was born in 2019.
Awesome. We're going to touch on that as well, mate, through the episode. I'm really excited to hear a bit more about M26. So, mate, let's go back. And also in all that, so you were in construction from a young age, obviously. You got married young, I believe. So you're only, I
was 21 when I got married.
And then you had Daniel, your son.
When I was 24.
Yeah, right. Okay, we'll talk about a bit more about that as well, mate. I want to go back to the start, though. So you said in that timeline, you were born in Sweden. That's interesting. So 5 years of age, mate, you come to Australia. Now, I'm guessing you didn't speak any English?
No, in Sweden, you don't start school until you're 7 years of age. So really? I had, no kindy, no preschool, no nothing. Arrived here in May. And then in June, just got chucked straight into grade 1. So
tell me about that, mate. So your parents up and leave when you're 5, and you got brothers and sisters?
Younger brother and older brother.
So how old was he?
He's 18 months older than me, and my younger brother's 3 years younger than me.
So your younger brother was only 2 when you left Sweden?
Correct.
And you all spoke Swedish?
That's it.
So why did your parents leave, mate? Why did they leave Sweden? What was the reasoning behind that?
They had some friends that migrated over, and this was back in 1974 when Australia were looking for immigrants. So they actually paid for us to come over here.
Really?
Yep.
And your mum and dad couldn't speak English either?
They couldn't speak a word of English.
So what did you guys do as a family then? Why Brisbane? Why did you move? Why Brizzy? Why was that just...
That's where mum and dad's friends ended up, so they just came here.
So do you remember much about that time? Coming over here as a 5-year-old? Do you remember any memories of Sweden?
No real The only memories I have is Dad was an avid photographer, so there's a lot of photos of us as kids, and I've got Mum telling plenty of stories about what life was like in Sweden.
So touch on that though. That must have been a lot of adversity though for the whole family. Like I know you didn't come from like a war-torn country or anything at the time, but not speaking English, now being forced to go to school, your mum and dad obviously starting work over here. How was that? How did you learn English? How did you go about it?
I think it was just a matter of diving in. I've heard before people say that, you go to a foreign country, then you don't speak your own language anymore. You just dive into that foreign language. But I remember Mum telling me the amount of times that she'd come and pick us up from school and I'm bawling my eyes out going, no one understands me, and the teacher's crying saying that no one understands, or she can't understand me. So I could just imagine for Mum and Dad how tough it would have been for them coming into a foreign country and not being able to speak the language.
So what did they do for work, mate, your mum and dad?
Mum was just doing cleaning, and Dad got funnily enough, a sales job selling vacuum cleaners. He doesn't have any history in that, but that only lasted a year odd, and then our neighbour was a builder, so Dad started working for him as a carpenter.
Right, that's going to be interesting to touch on later. So that's maybe where you got a bit of that passion from yourself.
Absolutely.
Handyman.
I'd been on construction sites then since I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
So when Dad was working, he was again learnt carpentry and then building. And my older brother, he left school a year before me, and he was a carpenter as well. So I think that's you're just following in your father's footsteps and your brother's footsteps.
Yeah. Geez, pretty handy family then to have around. Jeez, I tell you. And mate, would you ever move back to Sweden? Have you been back?
I've been back a number of times, and just 2 years ago I went back to my little hometown, which I guess is about the same size as Rockhampton, and spent 2 weeks there and really, really enjoyed it. For some reason it just had a really homely feel about it, but I could definitely move back.
Did your folks go back with you?
No, not on that trip, no.
They've been back though?
They've been back a number of times,
Yeah, right, and they'd never moved back to Sweden now?
Mum and Dad never would, no.
Yeah. That's interesting, mate. Do you think that played a big part, though, like the adversity you went through then? Like, it's a big challenge for a 5-year-old, and obviously for your brothers as well. But do you think that has put you in good stead to, hitting those hurdles through life, as you've got through them?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, overcoming something like that at such a young age, I think would really stand you in good stead for all those other hurdles through your teenage years into your 20s and stuff.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that, but I guess to a certain degree that, I was always, I guess, trying to prove myself.
Yeah.
And I was a bit of a runt. I was the littlest kid at school. You look at all my school photos and I'm always the smallest kid there. So I just think, maybe trying to just be better and improve yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. So you go to school in Brisbane. Now, you went to, what schools did you go to?
I went to Upper Mount Gravatt Primary and then McGregor High.
Yeah, right. So just a public school boy, working class family. How were you academically? What was on your what was on the Magnus Olson yearly report card?
It was pretty.
I know what this is going to say. Same as mine, mate. If only you had listened.
Can't sit still. Very easily distracted were probably the two main comments, and but not very academic. Academically was not my thing. I was quite sporty at school, but I think I just scraped through and passed school.
So interesting though. Back on that, so you're at school though, with your report card. If you can't speak English your first year at school, did the teachers take that upon themselves? Like how?
No, I just think I
by grade 2 you were speaking English or what?
Yeah, well, I ended up doing a year and a half of grade 1, but I think you just pick it up. Like as a kid, you must pick it up reasonably quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about sport, mate. What sport did you play?
Played cricket and soccer.
Yeah, all the way through from junior school to high school?
No, not in a high school. I was into BMX a bit. So as soon as I hit high school, I wanted to do some modifications to my bike, and that required money, and the only way I was going to get that, so I got myself a job when I was 13 in grade 8 every afternoon after school. So
now this is an interesting one for you, mate, because I've spoke to your mum. There's a bit of a rumour going around about you because you said you were a runt as a kid.
Yep.
But apparently you were a big fat baby.
I was a big fat baby, yeah. It's something Mum reminds me of almost every birthday, and that was I was the biggest baby born at that hospital at the time.
Really?
Yeah, tipping the scales at 11 pound.
You're joking. Your poor mum. and I hear you were, obviously you had a lot of energy as a kid, mate, so you run before you could walk?
Yeah, that's right. 9 months apparently I was didn't take my first step, but started running at the age of 9 months.
And tell me, I hear a little funny story about a leash. What happened? So we didn't have family dogs. We just had Magnus the child, running around on a leash. Is that right?
Well, poor old mum, having my older brother that was to look after as well. And if you put me down, I just took off. So yeah, I was on a leash, mate.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Can you imagine doing that today? Seriously, I want to put my kids on a leash sometimes. So mate, out of all that though, so you've got through. You've gone through primary school, you've learned to speak English, we're now at high school. Where did you get, like obviously your dad was a builder, but is that just something then you just automatically gravitated towards? Like obviously you left school early, like your brother. Was that just something you got to grade 8 and went, that's it, I want to be a builder? Or how did that come about? Was it something they pushed you into? Or
not pushed me into it all. I think of just being like every school holidays, every Saturday I was on the construction sites with Dad, sweeping up, and it was just, you're kind of half bred in, and I've always loved building things. So when I was a kid, playing with Lego, and it was just, I found it very rewarding to physically build something. Nowadays in a lot of stuff you do with admin, it's a computer screen or a piece of paper, but here hardly a day went by when you couldn't, you hop back in the truck at the end of the day and you could actually see what you'd done for the day, and that's very rewarding.
I think more kids probably need to do that sort of stuff, don't they? Like a lot of kids today shy away from or parents are with Lego and Meccano. Like I remember my days, mate. I mean, I'm not a builder, but how good was it playing with Meccano and Lego back in the day and building stuff? It's really rewarding, isn't it? Especially for boys.
100%. Yeah. No, absolutely loved it. We had a lot of Lego between the family.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. And now, was there anything else you wanted to do when you grew up? Like obviously your whole family were builders, but is there anything else like, every kid wanted to be an astronaut or, play cricket for Australia or soccer for Sweden? Like was there anything else you wanted to do that?
Nothing that really comes to mind. I think that just in the way that we were just brought up, it was something that Rod just from a young age just going, I just want to build things. Yeah.
Oh mate, that's so good. Well mate, you leave school and that's exactly what you did then. You went straight into building. So tell us a bit about that story, the transition from grade 10 at McGregor High into building. You went and obviously did your apprenticeship. Did you work for yourself? Did you work for someone else? How did that all sort of start?
Started off, my father did the indenturing, I think they refer to it as. So he signed me up as an apprentice, and I spent the first year working for Dad.
For your dad?
Well, on paper. So somebody has to sign you up. Yep. And so he signed me up. I spent a year working with Dad, and my brother was a second-year apprentice by that time. He was a year ahead of me. So my brother and I teamed up. We started up our own carpentry business at the age of 16, and we were together for maybe 6 or 7 years, and we grew so big that we weren't able to keep all of our clients satisfied. So we ended up having to split our gangs, and older brother went.
So you actually ended up having workers underneath both of you?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, right. So you're both on the tools, but had then young guys working under you.
Yeah.
So what was that called, Max?
We just had our own. It was just like
Olson built.
Yeah, P&M Olson. So just
is your brother still building?
He is project managing.
Right. I never knew that. So for 7 years you just did your own thing together?
Yeah, well, we worked together for about 7 years. Like I said, then we split, and then he created his own gang. I created my own gang. I think in my heyday, I think I had 10 guys working for me.
So what's this? That's now you're mid-20s, so 26, something like that?
Yeah, mid-20s.
What were you building, mate? Were you just focusing on houses? Yeah, what were you doing?
I've done everything. We first started off, my brother and I, we built a lot of units. And then I get...
In Brizzy?
Yeah. I get bored fairly quickly. So starting off, it was building units, and then you get to be reasonable at that, and then you want to try something else. So I've pretty much done low-grade renovations, extensions, bathrooms, all the way up. We've built houses, pole houses on the side of a cliff. I've built mansions right on the water. It's just a very, very broad spectrum. There's not sort of too much that I didn't and hadn't achieved in the carpentry space.
Geez, how good is that? So you really upskilled yourself across the entire board.
Yeah, just loved it very much with me. I love continuous improvement. I love learning.
Yeah. So you're doing that for other people. What about yourself? Like, did you and your brother build your own homes young? How old were you when you built your own place?
I was 21 when I built my first house.
Where was that?
And that was in Wishart.
So you just bought a block of land, or you knocked something down?
No, bought a block of land.
Really?
And built my first house. And then during that time, I built probably 4 houses for just friends.
Really?
Yep.
In that area?
No, it was all around the place. I was over the north side and down south as well.
Mate, that's so good. Geez, I didn't realise you were, mate, so heavily involved in that. So tell us that. So you leave your brother, or you guys did your own gangs, but where was the transition from that, Magnus the builder on the tools, managing your own team, to then into that more corporate side with, because I think you ended up working with Beach Construction, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, so how did you go? But you weren't obviously on the tools then, you're now in the sort of the management side of it?
Yeah, well, when I first started with those guys, I was a site manager, so you weren't able to physically wear a nail bag. But
did they headhunt you though, or did they? Or was that just something you wanted to get into?
No, well, I'd actually worked for them as a carpenter.
Ah, right. So you're actually doing work for them.
And then they tapped me on the shoulder because they picked up a job, they needed somebody, and they rang me up and said, "Hey, do you want to give site management a go?"
Yep.
And I built a church over at Yeronga.
Right, for Beach.
For Beach.
And so talk about that journey then. So where did that go? Like your first year with them, you built a church, but then was it just site management then for the next couple of years?
Yeah, site management for the next couple of years. And then I just wanted to transition. I'd been obviously on a construction site since I was 15, and the climate in Brisbane, it gets quite warm in summertime, so it's nice. I just wanted to try something else. Yep. So I asked if I could go into the office, and then got taught on contract administration, estimating. And I was doing courses on the side, so I went and did a typing course. I did a course on Excel, Word, and back then, I mean, I couldn't even use a fax machine. Like, that was sort of before computers really took over.
So what year is this then? So you've left. So this is like when you're like, this is like 2 decades ago. So sort of around 2000.
Yeah,
sort of
year 2000 I started with Beach.
Yep. Oh, right. Interesting. Yep. So now, so you're off the tools now. Were you enjoying that, being off the tools, or you still had a passion for it?
No, I was enjoying the challenge of the administration, because it's easy to see how things happen on the construction site, but like with anything, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes in the pricing and in the design. That was quite fascinating for me. So, and then again, just wanting to climb, so project management was next. And then when I got promoted to the construction manager's role, the directors of that company wanted to grow the business. And so they tasked that responsibility with me, and we came up with a bit of a game plan, and then we experienced some pretty significant growth over the next 10 years or so.
Yep. So was that stressful then? Now you're in that sort of more corporate-y type role at a management level, rather than, I mean, it's sort of, I'd imagine that goes more down the path of now you're more in business management type stuff, more so than you're managing staff, or that more than the actual on the tools building stuff. Like different, was that hard? Like that whole transition, or it's just something you had to learn? Because you're not born with that, obviously. I mean, you've been banging nails in walls at 15.
Yep.
Now you're managing a whole, team of people.
Yeah.
Was that tough? Stressful?
The responsibility side of it, I think it's difficult to put that into words, but I do remember as soon as I had the construction manager's role, leading up to that, being a senior project manager, you've got a certain level of responsibility, but not the ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
But as soon as I had the title of construction manager, then I was ultimately responsible for everything, and you definitely did feel that pressure on your shoulder at that time.
Yeah. So then tell me then, why did you leave construction, mate, and when?
Oh, well, I'd grown. I mean, we grew that business.
Because you're only with Beach, weren't you, the whole time? Once, and then when you left construction, you were with Beach?
Yeah. Well, I'd been with them for 18 years, and as a managing director for 10 of those years, and we grew the business from, I think, 4 million turnover, and we were just under 50 when I left. So, again, probably just a transition. I'd felt I'd done all I could do in that company, and all I wanted to do in construction. And then the next transition for me was property development. We worked for a lot of property developers, and I liked what they did, and that to me was the ultimate. Like not having to do the building, but do the actual development, be involved right from the block of land, right through all the approval process, and being able to realise that dream at the end of it, but not physically doing the construction work.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Mate, I want to dive a little bit into into your personal life during that whole period, that whole journey with your construction and everything as a young guy. So you built your first home when you were 21. you got married when you were, was that about the same time?
I got married at 21.
21, so that was really, really young. What was that like? And then you had your son when you were
24.
24. So tell me a bit about that, mate. Like getting married young, having Daniel. How hard, was that period, as a young guy? Like 21, mate, a lot of responsibility, building your own home, getting married. What was that like?
Well, to be honest, I was working a lot. I was fortunate that my wife was able to stay home and looked after Daniel. So at that time, I was probably working 60, 70-hour weeks. So certainly don't think I qualified for any Father of the Year awards at the time. It was a big growth phase in my carpentry business.
Do you think so? You and your wife, you separated? How old were you when that happened?
That happened in 2006.
Yeah, right. So how old are you then?
37.
So how was that, mate? Like, you've gone through a separation now. Were you kind of sort of like felt like you're starting your life over again? Because you've been pretty successful at a young age, 21, married, having a child. Now you're 37. Like, was that hard, mate, to step away from a marriage and sort of, how was that feeling? Felt like you had to sort of start over, or?
Yeah, it was
tough to manage.
It was. At that time in my life, the hardest thing that I'd ever gone through. It's not something that I wish upon anybody. It was we'd been together since I was 17. So we'd been together for 20 years, long time, and Daniel was 13 at the time, and it was very, very difficult for him.
And you were obviously in quite high up with Beach at this point.
Yeah, I was sort of project manager status. The following year, I got promoted into the construction manager's role. But it was quite a difficult, challenging.
Tough to balance all that going on in your life as well. Do you think maybe though, like with your early days, like again, I go back to that, you had so much adversity so young coming from Sweden and everything. You'd overcome so much by then, leaving school early as well. And you'd achieve so much as well, starting businesses with your brother. Do you think that all helped though with all that, balancing it all, and you know what I mean? Like just, getting to a point where you could probably handle adversity a little bit better than someone else going through that at 37?
Yeah, I didn't look at it from that perspective, but one thing that I do remember is I'd gone from living with mum and dad moved into the first house that I'd ever built. And so I'd never rented before. And so when we got divorced, I've had to go and rent, I've gone to rent a unit, and they're asking for rental history, and I literally had to justify. So I'd always lived in a reasonably nice house, and then I've gone into a position where I'm having to try and justify to somebody that I'm a good tenant. Yeah, true. So I remember that quite distinctively was another transition.
So you're lucky you're not going through a divorce in 2024, mate. I'll give you the tip. So let's move forward now. So you passed that part of your life. You've got through it all. You've met Amanda Jane, your current wife. She's an absolute gun. You guys have been together for nearly 20 years.
Is that right? We've been together 18 years now. That's right,
So tell me about this, mate. She's obviously played a big role in your life. Touch on the importance of her influence. You're now your late 30s, you meet AJ. Obviously having that constant in your life. She's been a big supporter. Just tell me a bit about that. Like, has she helped out a lot with that sort of period of your life, and even now with, and we'll touch on it a bit, coming up with the Ridge and stuff at Mullaney, but just talk about that. Like, I know you and I talk a bit off air too, and we always surrounding yourself with good people, but having a partner by your side that's just solid, it's really important, isn't it?
100%. No, it's very true what they say. Behind every good man, there's a good woman. Even and better. So having her there, she'd be my biggest supporter, and that makes a massive difference. I think that inner circle is supremely. I wouldn't have achieved what I've achieved today without her and without that positive influence.
But it's even, you and I talk a fair bit about, it's not just, your partner's obviously really important, as you know, my partner Sammy, AJ for you, but it's about the people you surround yourself with though, isn't it? You talk about that inner circle, that's interesting. If you surround yourself with good people, then you're going to go far, aren't you?
Absolutely. I think that that's probably one of the biggest challenges that people face, particularly when they want to go through some change in your life. So if we look at it from a fitness perspective, if you're overweight and you want to make and have a conscious decision to improve your health and your fitness, if all your mates that you're hanging around just all go to the pub. They don't care about their fit. It's going to be very difficult for you to make that change. But if you've surrounded yourself with a bunch of fit guys who are going to the gym and they're watching what they eat, then you're a much higher chance of succeeding in your goal if you've surrounded
100%.
Yourself with the right people.
Yeah, it's I heard a saying the other day, actually. It's I can't remember where it came from, and they said, if you want to go somewhere fast in life, go on your own.
Yep.
But if you want to go far, go together.
Yep.
So it's really important, isn't it? But that's awesome, mate. And now, going back now to you've left beach. You said you were getting into some property development. The Ridge at Mullaney.
Yes.
Tell our guests about the Ridge, because I've had the privilege of staying there, mate, and it is unbelievable. It's such a beautiful part of the world. The cabins you've built up there you built with your bare hands, didn't you?
No, I built my own house, but
Yep.
all of the cabins were all built by another builder,
Yep.
modular.
So just go back to the start of it, though. So how did the Ridge at Mullaney come about? Where did the vision come from? Where did those dreams and visions, and how did you make those actually become a reality? So when did that start? Because you left construction in, 2018?
Yep, 2018. So where it started... So the dream and the vision initially started off that I wanted a cabin up in the mountains. Ideally, I wanted a log cabin up in the mountains, and I wasn't in a financial position to just go and buy acreage and drop a cabin on there to use on the weekend. So
Yeah.
I thought, well, if I did a development, then hopefully I'd make enough profit and I'd get a cabin out of it. So I went looking for some land, some suitable land, and found a block down in the Gold Coast hinterland. And through my DD, understanding what I could and couldn't do, one of the architects that I was working with at the time, he was involved in a similar project. So I had a cup of coffee with him to get a bit of an insight into how I'd go about structuring a development like that. And he said, mate, the best person to talk to is my brother. He was the developer on that project. So I spoke to him. He gave me a few insights, and the block that I was looking at the time was going to auction. And he told me that if that block didn't work out for me, he knew a guy that had 300 acres up in Mullaney with a development approval and was looking for a business partner. And so I went along to the auction. It sold for a lot more than I was prepared to pay, and the rest is history. So I've signed up, and that was 2017.
Oh, so you actually bought that up there prior to leaving construction?
Correct.
Ah, right. So then 2018 is when you started construction?
So we started... started construction in 2018, or we built the display cabin in 2017, did the sales process, and we didn't hit the ground running proper until after I'd finished up with beach.
Yeah, right. When was that?
2018.
Yeah, right. So you really started construction in 2019, something like that.
Well, end of 2018, and we delivered our first stage in 2019.
So tell the viewers quickly about, mate, the Ridge. So what is it? How many cabins? I know because you've got a big conference centre as well there.
Correct.
Like it's a crack. So what is it? What's the website?
The Ridge at Mullaney.
Yeah, okay. So tell us about that quickly. You got how many cabins?
We got 16 cabins. We got 1, 2 and 3 bedroom cabins on 300 acres. Function centre. We run corporate retreats. We run wellness retreats. So it's a very, very special place.
Mate, how good's that? What and they all have availability to rent, aren't there? There's no one living there full time.
Correct.
So they're owned, but they're on Airbnb. They can sorry, not Airbnb. Well, you can Airbnb them, can't you? But it's you can just book them through the Ridge at Mullaney's website as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So family holidays, you can take corporate groups up there, anything you want. Mate, that's unbelievable. It's such a good part of the world up there as well. Mate, just quickly, and I know this is going to be something for another podcast because the M26 brand, mate, is just getting bigger and bigger. But I just want to touch on the M26, and I know the vision for you, is to impact millions of people in the world, to become a global brand. But where did the dream of M26 sort of start from? And I just want to talk about the principles because I know we've spoken off air about, you went through a period of time where your health wasn't great, and it was sort of that exercise and nutrition and everything that got you back on board. So is that kind of where the dream of M26 started for you? Or
It was. It was absolutely right wheel smack bang in the middle of Mullaney. So I put the nail bag back on again and wanted to build my own house, which was an awesome opportunity to get back and build something after such a long time, and particularly my own house. But through the course of that period, we weren't able to sell the cabins. So after stage one, things just stopped, and I had all the cabins. We built another 3, and I had every cent I'd ever made invested in that project, and that was quite tough. And I'd always prided myself if I couldn't find a way, I'd make a way. But I couldn't make a way. I went 18 months without selling. Felt like a bit of a failure, and a bit hopeless.
Yeah.
And I was drinking. Not
so
something.
You weren't training like you are now. Like, you're obviously a really disciplined guy, which we'll talk about more. But you're like, obviously now you're super fit. You train every day. You just weren't doing that back then. No. You went through a period of your life just working. You're probably out of balance a fair bit.
No, 100%. So I think that being too laser focused on that and not focusing on my health, and it was Amanda that said to me, like, mate, you need to get back and spend more time in Brisbane. You need to get around your mates. You need to get back to the gym. You need to get back out on the bike. And mate, you got to stop drinking. But before that, I was taking antidepressants. I was seeing a psychologist. That wasn't working for me, and it wasn't until I came back to Brisbane and I got around my mates. I got back out on the bike and I got back into the gym and got off the booze, and I started to realise that importance. I also really dove into trying to understand myself better, just in a personal discovery, and I didn't know myself as well as I thought I knew myself.
Yeah,
and
interesting.
Getting that level of insight on yourself. And
in what regard, mate? Like, tell us about that. Like, you didn't know yourself as well as you thought. Like, just in terms of how you handled that, or like,
exactly, just how I went about. So I started to read a lot of books. It was a big thing for me. Doing research on it, just getting a greater understanding of who I was and how I reacted to certain situations. And what I learned from that experience was that I needed to exercise every day. That was a fundamental for me. And practicing gratitude. I took up meditation. I took up breath work. And all of those just helped me personally. And that's how the brand was born.
So that was where the flame started. It lit a flame in you where you wanted to help others now. Because through that, I mean, obviously you're in the corporate world. You and I speak a bit where we've got mates. There's a lot of men out there. Well, men and women, not just men, but in the corporate world, and not only in Brisbane either, around the entire country, that are stuck where you were, because you're in a bit of a rut, weren't you? You turn to drinking, you're too busy to do anything, you're low on energy, and it kind of snowballs, doesn't it? It just gets a bit out of control. But when you make that decision, though, and going back to, like, for you, you know, exercise was a big changer in that, wasn't it? Just daily exercise, and you just made a commitment at that point to go, right, because you kind of lose yourself a bit, don't you?
You absolutely do.
And obviously having someone like Amanda next to you, they see that, and sometimes you need that gentle reminder to just be like, hey, you need to get back to, you know, yourself, don't you? And so tell us then, like, with that, the flame started, M26, tell us a bit about, through that journey, you know, the principles, though, of M26. You know, we're going to do another whole podcast on this, but I just wanted to know, like, where did, like, the 26, what does it represent?
It represents 26 minutes, and the EP represents movement. So move your mind, work your mind, and work your body every day.
So that's and I can see it on your shirt there. So strong mind, strong body. So that's the core principles. 26 minutes of exercise every day is all it takes. 26 minutes reading a book. I think you said 2.6 litres of water. Everything 2 and 6.
That was where the M26 challenge came in. So I felt that if you weren't in that health and wellness space that you needed to be, by taking on that challenge, which was a 26 minutes working mind and body, drink, like, hydration is a massive thing, just like nutrition is. And it's equally important what you put on. We all know that is preservatives in food, for
yep.
example. It's and alcohol. So
Yep.
refrain from alcohol, and sleep is a massive one for me. I've I aim for a minimum of 8 hours every night.
Really? Is that right?
100%.
So 8 hours every night?
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's interesting, isn't it, that what I think you said it to me off air once is, what is it? What you eat will directly affect how you feel, and then what you do with your body will be how you look. Is that right?
Yep.
Something like that.
Yep.
That's awesome. Look, we're going to go into, like I said, another podcast on M26, mate, because I know all the listeners are really, really keen to hear more about that and where you're taking it in the future. I think it's really exciting, because I think it can definitely become a global brand. But, mate, I want to have a chat to you now a bit about outside of all that, because you've got so much going on now. You've got the Ridge at Mullaney, which obviously you're managing. We've got M26 going on. What about Magnus outside of those things? What are your hobbies? What are your interests outside of that? What do you do when you're not working?
Oh, what do I do? Love motorbikes. Love helicopters, jet ski.
So have you got a motorbike?
Hockey.
Now?
Yep, still got a motorbike.
And you fly, don't you? Tell us
Yes.
about that.
Well, that actually happened after I'd completed the Ridge at Mullaney. I was at a crossroad, and an opportunity came up, and just back on that whole growth and continuous improvement, that was a 6-month period for me in getting my helicopter license.
So what do you mean opportunity? How does that come up? Some bloke says one day, hey mate, you want to fly my helicopter? Can you take it? Can you park it for me?
No, well, it was actually a guy that I used to work for, a property developer back in the beach days, that was a helicopter pilot, and I happened to be having lunch with him, and he just bought himself a helicopter. I talked about was a childhood dream, and he said, mate, you should do it. Here, give this guy a ring. He's the best instructor in Brisbane. And the next thing, 6 months later, I'm a helicopter pilot.
You're joking. Yeah. Moral of the story, kids, if you want money in a helicopter, get into construction. Start banging in nails when you're 15. Mate, what about motorbikes? You still got a motorbike?
Yeah, 100%. I love that. Yep.
You know me with motorbikes, mate. We don't get along. I crash mine, so no good. But what about, mate, you've got a random one too, I know about you. Ice hockey.
Yes.
You play ice hockey as well?
I do.
And you still play now?
100%.
Mate, that's so random. How does a kid from Brisbane, living in the tropics, get into ice hockey?
When did that happen? I'd actually just gotten divorced, and I'd taken my son Daniel, who was 13 at the time, I think, just to a public skating session out at Acacia Ridge.
Are you kidding?
And I remember there, got the mental rentals on, and I'm cruising around the outside of the rink, trying not to embarrass myself. And I remember we'd stopped, and I was just leaning against the boards and watching all these good guys zooming around and just so graceful. And behind them on the sign in the back of the ice rink was this sign, "Come and try ice hockey." And
you're like, I'm Swedish, I'll be right.
And there and then I just had this, I guess, this vision, and I turned to my son and said, I'm going to play ice hockey. And I remember he looked up and laughed at me and said, like, Dad, you can't even skate. And then the next day, on the Sunday, I went into town here at Skate Biz, bought myself a pair of skates, signed up to skate school, and that Monday night I started skate school. And
you're kidding.
And I remember that distinctively as the only adult out there. And there's other blokes my age sitting in the stands watching their kids learn how to skate. And then about 10 months later, every single Monday night of doing skate school, I got to a point where I felt I had the ability, and then a couple of months later, I did one of those come and try sessions, and at the end of the session, the bloke pulls me aside and said, mate, you want to join the team? And been playing ever since. And
you're kidding. So how often do you play that? How does the season of ice hockey... Mate, Brisbane people wouldn't even know that ice hockey exists. I'm actually going to come out and give it a crack. Yeah. I really do. I want to... Like, is it as violent as what they make out?
Not in our league. I did play full contact at one stage, but had a bit of an injury and realised that wasn't for me at my age. But I still play every week. And next week we're every single week, and then we're off to a bunch of us are heading off to New Zealand next week. We've got a tournament over there for a week.
How good's that?
So it'll be a bit of fun. Look forward to that.
And so what is that in? Is that like a Masters type comp or like it's just everyone? Like
it's a beer league.
Really? Yep. Beer league? Yep. Yeah, right. So
but
just straight to the pub afterwards. How good's that? So what's your position in ice hockey? I don't know ice hockey.
Yeah, I'm on the wing generally, so yeah.
So you're still the skinny kid from McGregor on the wing.
Yep.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, mate, this is what I'm really interested to start talking about. We all know... I want to know how you daily put these M26 principles. The one thing I'll say about you is you're someone who you don't just preach to people, you practice what you preach. So you're someone who I think leads by example. But, you know, you've got all these amazing hobbies, motorbikes, helicopters, hockey. But outside of that, you know, what is your fitness day sort of entail? Like what's an everyday for Magnus based around your fitness? What's your daily activities, etc.?
Well, I try to vary my activities.
Yep.
It's I do both strength training and I do endurance training and also flexibility.
So what are you doing for that though? If we break that down, so with your strength training, I'm guessing the gym.
Yep.
A couple of times a week. How many times do you go to the gym?
Generally at the gym 4 times, 5 times a week.
Yep. And what about your endurance stuff? What sort of activities are you doing for that?
Endurance is predominantly hockey once a week and then the kayaking sessions, mate. So they're the 2 activities, and then depending on what the schedule's looking like, then I'm out on the bike as well.
Because I'd imagine ice hockey would be pretty up there for your fitness as well.
Very cardiovascular focused.
Yeah, okay. So what and how do you normally structure your week? Like, what does a training week, you know, look like for you? Are you someone who just, you know, because people are busy today. I mean, you're a really busy guy, and I know business people out there are super busy. And I think some people today, I'm sure you'd agree, that if they can't train at a certain time, they just don't train. You know, but going back to your M26 principles, it's committing, isn't it, to just that 26 minutes minimum of exercise per day. But are you really structured with, you know, I cycle on these days, I gym on these days? Like when do you do it, or you're just a bit sort of when you can fit it in?
It's when I fit it in. Having a number of businesses on the go, there's a number of commitments, and you're fitting in meetings, for example, with people. Yep. So I just structure it that every single day I'm doing something. It could be an AM session, it could be a PM session. It doesn't matter as long as I get it done.
So you're always pivoting.
100%.
See, that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of people now in the city, we use the word busy a lot. It's probably overused. You know, and you probably hear it a lot through your M26 and coaching, particularly with the executives, where I'm too busy for this or I'm too busy for that.
Yep.
But it's got to be a commitment to yourself, isn't it? Like you've committed to yourself. You said to me off air before that this is a lifestyle for you, isn't it? It's not just a diet. It's not just something you do for 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Like you commit to this every single week of your life, don't you?
It's got to be sustainable.
Yep. So what's your advice to people with that sort of stuff? I mean, if you are busy, you've just got to find time in your day somewhere. Like, what's your advice to those people? With
some of my coaching clients, I get their diary a month out, and then you plug in, these are the days and what's important. So if they're one of their priorities, obviously for most people, is spending some time with their family. Well, you need to put those big rocks in first.
Yep. So they're like your non-negotiables.
100%. Yep. So if you don't have that same flexible working environment that I do, then you may be working a 9 to 5 job. Well, you need to be slotting in whether before work or after work, and that's a commitment. And it's very much just, we've talked about it before, it's starting small.
Yeah.
It's don't try and do 2 hours every single day. But that's where I feel that it's manageable just to focus on 26 minutes.
Yeah.
And with your diet, it's not wanting to try and change everything overnight. But just start off, just move for 26 minutes.
Yep.
And then you can slowly improve on that. And if it's somebody that hasn't done anything, get out and go for a walk for 26 minutes.
Yep.
And you can even put your earbuds in and listen to an inspiring podcast or something that's helping your mind work and to grow. And you've got it all done inside of 26 minutes.
Because that's the thing, it doesn't have to be. I think a lot of people get caught up. They either overcomplicate it, or they say, the one I hear a lot is, it's expensive. You know, gyms are expensive. But there's a lot of inexpensive activities you can do out there, isn't there? You know, like come down kayaking with us on a Friday, you know, $20. Best $20 you'll spend. Get out for a walk. Rock climbing, anything really, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. So many different exercises you can do, but it's building momentum.
Yep.
So you got to start somewhere and get out there and do your 26 minutes.
Yep. You talk about momentum. A word I've heard you use a bit is compounding.
Yep.
Talk to me about that, like around your fitness. Like, what do you mean by that with the compounding stuff? Talk to me about that.
I look at it in the same principle as finance. So if you put $50 a week away in a separate account.
Yep.
After a month, you don't see too much. After 2 months, you don't see too much. But in 10 years, have a look. So every decision that you make is compounding in one way or another. So it's making that decision, am I going to choose the apple? Am I going to choose the muffin?
Yeah.
And building upon all of that, it will take time, but after that period of time, you will reap the rewards on it.
It's an interesting one. So your theory with the compounding, so you're making that decision and you're either compounding to get closer to your goal or one way further away.
100%.
Yeah, that's really, really good, isn't it? One of the questions I wanted to ask you, because this is also something that I think people are struggling with at the moment. We all know, like Brisbane's in a massive cold snap at the moment. Obviously, Melbourne's really cold. Does your commitment to you though, and you obviously you talk about big rocks. That's a big rock for you. Is to help with your mental health, your physical health, is exercise. Does it change for you though in summer and winter? Because it's pretty hard out there at the moment. I know you and I were having a bit of a break from the kayaking for the moment. But does it change for you from winter to summer?
No, it absolutely does. I prefer to get out on the bike in winter because I'm not a fan of the heat.
Right.
So that, as an example, the good thing is about with gym and obviously with hockey, it's all indoors, so it doesn't matter. But I very much fluctuate. Like I like doing a lot of hiking. And again, you can't go hiking up a glasshouse mountain in the middle of summer, in the middle of the day.
True.
So I very, very much mix things up in relation to what the weather's doing and trying to take advantage of the weather.
Isn't it amazing too? Like it's something you just touched on, the lifestyle in Southeast Queensland. Like there's no real excuses, is there? I mean, you talk about 26 minutes of exercise, but you don't really need a gym, do you, to get out there? I mean, you can go every Sunday you could be up at the Glasshouse Mountains, out at Mount Cootha. I mean, how good is it where we are around Kangaroo Point here today, walking around the river?
Yeah,
stairs everywhere.
100%.
Yep.
And then when you're doing your movement, try and do it with a friend.
Yeah. Do you think that's a big part of it?
Yep.
Training with someone?
Yep. Activity and connection. So it's like you pointed out, it's a lifestyle decision. So you just have a lifestyle that's based around activity.
Yep. Because that's one of the big principles, isn't it, of the M26 brand that we'll touch on in another podcast, is you're really trying to build that community of like-minded people, aren't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because it's a big, big key, isn't it, to keeping people motivated, inspired, surround yourself with a like-minded community.
Absolutely.
And you'll go far. Yeah, that's really good, Mags. Mate, the big one, though, with all this we want to know is nutrition. How do you fuel your body? I mean, you obviously do a lot of exercise, ice hockey, you're climbing mountains. And what's your nutrition look like every day?
I'm actually it's probably the thing I'm most disciplined on is my nutrition.
Yeah.
It does, again, vary depending on training load.
Yeah.
But very simple philosophy that I have, and that's lean and clean. That's how I eat, and I eat very consistently as well. The different times during the day when I have snacks, when I have breakfast, if I've got a big training schedule or a big training commitment, then making sure that you've got the necessary fuel to ensure that you're going to get through that session and not get fatigued because you don't have the energy resource.
How strict are you, though, on your diet? Like, you don't have to... I mean, I've seen you with your shirt off, mate. You're like a Swedish model on the beach. It pisses me off, actually. I recently went to the Wet Sundays with you and I didn't want to get my shirt off because I've got a dad bod. But, it's not... you hear a lot of people talk about genetics and, he's blessed and all that, but that's a bit of a load of crap, isn't it? Because you said something to me funny the other day. A guy came up to you in the gym and said, "What the hell do you eat to look like that?" And what did you say to him?
It's what I don't eat.
Correct. So it's that, again, is it just about, you surely must have some, because I know how strict you are, but you must have some, guilty pleasures that you go to. It's just that you're not doing it every day like me.
Correct. No, I definitely have a few cheat meals in there, and it's some of it's the quantity. So I love dark chocolate. So, but I'll have one square of dark chocolate, not half the block. And it's
Yeah, it's that Mars bar philosophy, isn't it? One Mars bar doesn't hurt you. But
No.
if you have a Mars bar every day, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well,
So are you strict with it, though, in the terms of, like, do you have your diet written out? Like, how do you, like, in talking to people listening today, like, who want to change their diet or be better with it, are you writing down a meal plan and giving yourself options? This is my brekkie options. my lunch options, these are my snacks, and this is what I have. And because you're pretty the same every day, aren't you?
I'm very much so. I personally don't, but I've been doing it so long that it again just changes based on training load. So just understanding, but the simple philosophy in, calories out.
Yep. So give me some insight though, like obviously you're doing some executive coaching with M26, helping people get fitter and healthier. What's your advice to someone who wants to have a better diet, for example? They've been pretty unhealthy for a long time, eating pizza every Friday night with 6 beers, all that sort of stuff. If they want to change next Monday, mate, what's the one thing you'd give them advice to change? Because you can't go from eating pizza and beer on a Friday night every week to being like Magnus Olson, can you, in 1 week?
It comes back to that compounding. The one piece of advice that I would give that had a massive impact on me when I got it done last year is to get a comprehensive blood analysis done.
Yeah, right.
What that'll do is that is your DNA, that is your fingerprint. It does not lie. So that will tell you, I felt that I was in pretty good shape, and I was recommended to go do this before doing a big trek last year. And my report came back. It's like a 35-page report. And I was deficient in a number of areas that I didn't realise. The only way I found out about that, and because I was leaving on that trip inside of 4 weeks, then I had to jump on a bunch of supplements to try and increase that. So that to me is your baseline. Off the back of that, we can then create meal plans that are targeted to your needs.
Geez, that's interesting. So clients of yours, because they can do that through your website, is that right?
100%.
So what's the website?
That's just M26FIT.
Yep. And they can actually order that on your website, can't they?
100%.
That's interesting.
Yep.
So that goes right down to the cellular level. Tells you what you're deficient in, all that sort of stuff. So that's the first point you go down.
Yep.
And then once you find out that stuff, then you apply their needs through diet and that sort of stuff.
Correct.
After that.
Yeah. And it's my philosophy is just keeping it simple.
Yep.
And again, like from that movement perspective, if you've done nothing, you just need to get some consistency around that movement.
Yep.
And once you're consistently moving, then you just add and improve on what you're doing.
Yep, that's awesome, mate. One thing, again, following those M26 principles of the attitude, power, balance, like you've obviously got your nutrition really sorted, because I think that's that's the fuel, I guess. Then you've got your exercise, which you are daily religious with. What about your mental health? Like I know a lot of our listeners, and you've had some really good guests on this podcast previously, around the mental health space. But do you train that stuff as well? Because you've spoke earlier about some of the struggles you've had, and I hope you don't mind diving a little bit into that, because you said you were on antidepressants for a while when you were going through some of your struggles. Is that something you work on a daily basis, just like your fitness, or how does that work?
It is. It started again for me getting to know myself.
Yeah.
So again, something I do with my coaching clients is the first thing we do, we go through a quite a detailed discovery process to try and understand a little bit of who you are.
Yeah.
And that, once you've got that understanding of yourself, there's some people that meditation will work for, and there's some that breath work will work for. So once you've gained an understanding, so me personally, meditation and gratitude are the two things that I do when I'm feeling depressed. If I'm feeling anxious, it's breath work.
So it's not necessarily something you do on a daily basis. It's just when you need it, or are you doing something daily for your mental health?
I meditate daily. And I practice gratitude daily.
Interesting. So tell us about that, your meditation. Is that something you do morning, night, when you need it?
I do it at night time, right before I go to sleep.
Yeah, right. Is that just to quieten the mind? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
The last thing I do before I go to bed.
Yep. If you don't mind talking about it, why was it when you were going through that time when you were on antidepressants and that sort of stuff? That was obviously prescribed from a doctor.
Correct.
What was that for, mate? Like what were you, it's just personal stuff you were going through? You were just unhappy? Like obviously you said you're unhealthy at the time as well. It was just a combination of things in life that was,
Yeah.
And what was your experience with that actually, like being on antidepressants?
I didn't enjoy the experience. I think part of who I am is I've got some fairly high highs, and then I hadn't experienced that depth of low. Alcohol was probably was a massive influence. It was great at the time. You're sitting at home, you're having a few beers, everything feels good. But then you wake up at 3 a.m. with the booze blues, and it's just an awful feeling. So getting off that, but literally the antidepressants, they just numb everything. Yeah. So I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sad, and that didn't agree with me. Again, I get the endorphins from going out and smashing myself on the bike or smashing myself at the gym. That the endorphin rush that I get from that far exceeds however amount of alcohol that I could ever drink. So,
but for the viewers out there that might be a bit depressed or going through their own struggles, I mean, you've got, like you said, a big part of your coaching is figuring out who you are and what works for you. But there's no doubt about it, is it, that, exercise, diet is far better than any of the antidepressants you're on or anything like that. And you just got to find out, I guess, what works for you. I mean, and that was a big catalyst for you, wasn't it? Getting happy again and, getting back to Magnus Olson himself was through your exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Not taking it, everybody is so different. That's why I think getting an understanding, once you've got your blood analysis done, for example, that will give you an insight to how you're functioning internally. And then externally, again, for me, and it may not be for everybody, but that is getting that baseline of moving every single day and not having a reliance on alcohol and removing some of the preservatives from the diets. All that we know with kids, just the impact that preservatives in the diet can have on a kid's mood. And there's so much science around it. So again, my philosophy is just dumbing everything down, just getting back to the basics.
And being disciplined around it.
Yep.
Mate, speaking of that, that's the next thing I want to touch on is your discipline. I mean, one thing you hear in life is that sometimes you can't teach what God didn't give you. Now, there's elements of life where I believe in that, but, do you think that discipline is something, I mean, you weren't born with it, obviously. You weren't very disciplined when you were drinking and, depressed and stuff. I mean, is it something you can work on? I mean, I don't always agree with that. You can't teach what God didn't give you. I think you've got to, everything's a learning thing, right? Like it's lessons in life, but is it's something that you can learn, discipline? I mean, that's where people struggle a lot with sticking to, a healthy lifestyle or engaging with new habits. Like, what's your advice on that? Like, what's your discipline like? Is it like a muscle? Do you work on it every day?
I think it is. For me, and like with the drinking, I felt that was me not being disciplined because that wasn't me being true to who I am. And once I made a decision to, hey, I don't need to drink anymore, then to me, discipline is me being true to myself and having integrity.
Was it easy though, just to go, I'm making a choice, I'm not drinking, or do you still have those times when you fall off that, like, do you limit it? Like, rather than drinking every night now, did you say, well, I'm just going to drink on weekends, or did you just cut it out altogether?
I cut it out altogether. My view is that what's the saying around this? Elimination before moderation.
Interesting.
So before you go
it's like
off,
the smoking philosophy, right? Like cold turkey.
Yeah, I believe that's the best way to do it. That you may decide, and like with that 26-day challenge, you go without alcohol for 26 days. And once you've done that, you want to start reintroducing it, you could. But you need to me, rather than trying to go and moderate, eliminate before moderation.
That's interesting. Is that the advice you'd give to people out there? Because, you even in your circles, we've all got mates that go, Mags, I wish I had as much discipline as you. Like, I even do it sometimes. Geez, I wish I was as disciplined as Mags. What's your advice for those people that say, I wish I was more disciplined? Like, what can they do to be more disciplined? Like, you're not born with discipline, right? Like, we've all with kids. What's something that you've done to work on that, though? Like, I know you've got to be strong and stuff, but is there anything you could do daily to work on discipline, do you think?
Baby steps. Again, I think if you've gone from, you're at a point and you want to get to a point, you get there one step at a time. And if you're managing it slowly and incrementally, you've got to, but you have to be true to yourself. And again, I think the way it's been for me, if I've told myself I'm not going to drink, then all I'm doing is just being true to myself. And and if I'm not being true to myself, then that's when I'm beating myself up about it. So that's how I view discipline, is me just doing what I say to myself that I'm going to do.
Yep. And that comes back to compounding again, doesn't it? So you do it for one day, it gets easier. You do it for 2 days, but you do it for 20. What's that thing on habits to form a habit? What is it? 30 days or something? I can't remember what it is, but it's longer than 1 day. I know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
26 days.
26 days. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 26 days to form a habit. There you go. We heard it here first. Mate, so on your discipline, tell us about this, your morning routine. What's your morning routine look like?
Well, again, my morning routine varies, and that depends on what my day's looking like. So this morning, for example...
do you have a time, though, that you get up every day, even though your routine might be different, or your work and stuff? Do you have are you up at... Surely you're not up at 5 one morning and then 8 another.
No, my time in rising literally gets up between 5 and 7. And that will, again, depend, because if I have late meetings on and I'm not in bed until 10 p.m., for example, I then will, in most instances, I can adjust my schedule to ensure that I can see I'm going to have a later night that particular night, well, that I'm not going to have anything on early in the morning. So
that's interesting.
The sleep is a huge thing. So I want to make sure that I get my 8 hours.
Yep, you're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. That's really good, because a lot of people talk about the 5 a.m. club, or just suddenly, and we've spoken about it before, where people try and bite off more than they can chew, where they just suddenly 8 a.m. every morning. Now they're trying to get up at 5, but you can adjust it. Of what you're saying, you've got to adjust it to your lifestyle. Yeah,
adjust it to your lifestyle, adjust it to who you are. Because there's some people that do need to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and part of that could be that they go to work at the same time every day. And I don't. Like I'm working almost every weekend. When you're running a number of businesses, like Mulaney, for example, it's a 24/7 business. And so there's responsibilities that you have, and I'm just adjusting and I'm prioritising my health and fitness, but within a schedule, because you still have a life to lead, you have businesses to run.
So that's interesting, though, your morning routine. So you talk about your big rocks, obviously your fitness, your health, your nutrition, but obviously one of your big rocks is also sleep. So you just obviously adjust it with that. If you're in bed at 10, then you're getting up at 6. So 8 hours for you is a big rock.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, interesting. What about your night routine, mate? Does that change, whether you go to bed at 9 or 10?
The standard routine would be 9, but again, it varies. So if you do have a late night commitment, I try to avoid late night commitments. And my evening routine is I read for half an hour every night before I go to bed, or 26 minutes, and then I'll meditate for between 5 and 10 minutes. And that doesn't change whether I do have a later night or not.
Interesting. Do you read first and then meditate? Or
read then meditate.
Really? And do you listen, your meditation, what's that entail? Like on your phone, or?
No, that's just me personally just being quiet.
Yeah, right. Being quiet, quieting the mind. Any thoughts while you're doing that, or it's just like 10 minutes just being quiet?
Trying to remove those thoughts.
Yeah, right. Interesting. That's really, really good. When did you start that, the meditation? Do you find that helps with sleep?
100%. I think when I start that.
What made you start that as part of your night
routine? Through my mental health journey.
Yeah, right.
It was recommended to me. And so having some consistency around that and trying to quiet your mind. So that's where the reading comes in. So you're not having any screens, any stimulation, any conversation. So I just read for 30 minutes. Or 26 minutes, should I say, and then do my meditation and the sleep consistently, which I can monitor now through the apps on your watch.
That's interesting, mate. That's I'm going to take that on board, mate. After this podcast, you watch, I'm going to start meditating tonight. So that's really, really awesome, mate. You seem, this is another big one I want to touch on with you, because we've spoken about it earlier. You're just someone who jumps at everything to me, like helicopter opportunity. Now you're a helicopter pilot, motorbikes, you're zooming around tracks, and because you enjoy a track day as well on the motorbike. You're a bit of a rev head.
Absolutely.
So you take on all this stuff, you're climbing mountains, you meet me and you become kayaking. So you're someone who seems to step out of their comfort zone quite a bit, even with your son, all those years ago at ice hockey. You see a sign, you go, I'm going to have a crack at it. What's your advice to people like that? Because we also hear a lot about, people going, I want to do that. But in the back of their mind, they've got this fear component, whereas you don't seem to have any fear. Like, does Magnus Olson have fear? And how do you control it? Because, mate, you can't get me up in a helicopter. You know that. You keep trying to get me up. And I'm like, mate, no. Whereas you seem to just, step out of your comfort zone so much. Again, is that, discipline, or is it just who you are as a person?
I think it's a little bit of who I am, but there are also activities that I've had visions and dreams about. like take the Whitsundays for example. Like how many times did you see me snorkeling? That's snorkeling, scuba diving, being under the water. That's just not something that that resonates with me.
Yep.
And so there's certain, I guess, elements and challenges.
Yep.
I enjoy a challenge, but at the same time, the challenge has to be true to who I am.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay. So you still got to enjoy it. I mean, you obviously enjoy that stuff you do.
Yep.
So that's a big advice that you'd give people, who there's a lot of people right now that are just spending their whole time working 5-6 days a week. They want to try stuff. They want to get out of their comfort zone. But is it just a matter of just do it, having the Nike saying, just get out there and have a crack?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Again, being true to yourself, 100%. That's exactly what you need to do, just to
Yep.
step out of that comfort zone. But
it's probably something, a lot of your listeners could do, couldn't you? You could just sit down, like you talk a lot about personal discovery and figuring out who you are as a person. You seem to, I know you're 55, but I don't know when you sort of had that moment, obviously, 6-7 years ago, but it's something that's really important, isn't it? Getting to know yourself, like sitting down and just knowing what makes you tick, what you like.
Absolutely.
Is that something that you think everyone should do? Sit down, get a notepad, figure out who you are, what you like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's personality tests out there as well that some people find interesting, just to try and gain an understanding of why I do what I do, and just being true to yourself.
Is that something you focus on too with some of your coaching clients and stuff, the M26? Like you got to figure out what they enjoy, right? Like not everyone's going to want to get out on the bike. You just got to find what you enjoy and stick true to yourself. Like
I said, that is a very detailed process that we go through. And you can't, it's like a fitness program.
Yep.
You need to understand your baseline.
Yep.
And understanding your baseline, you're not going to know what you want to do or what you're good at unless you've sat down and figured that out.
Yeah, absolutely. This probably ties into a little bit with that, but like you're someone who I look up to. Obviously, you're very successful. You've achieved a lot, but I want to talk about that word, achievement. You obviously think of something. You have dreams about things, whether it be Mulaney, M26. So you dream it, then you obviously believe in this stuff as well. Like, you buy the land, you have a vision to like you said, you always had a dream of having this log cabin, right? But you have this great ability to, you dream it, you believe in it, but then you do something about it. Like you attach action to it to actually make it happen. What's the advice you'd give people? Like, because there's a lot of people out there, including myself, that they probably know what they want. They're a little bit stuck in their job, or, they're not, they think their purpose might be somewhere else, and they're probably stuck somewhere in those stages of, the dream, or not to put action into it, or you know what I mean? Like, just can we talk about that a little bit? Because you're really good at that, isn't it? You have a dream, but then you actually believe in the dream. Like, that's obviously important, but then you put action behind it. Like, how does that look for you with all this stuff?
It's it's where the attitude balance came from. That's what I refer to as the principle of achievement, and that's what I've used, and that's been developed as a process for me over my entire life. So there's not a single instance where I've achieved something that I don't follow that process. I'm still learning from that process, but we've got them up here. So to me, everything starts. There's a saying. You thought something, then you believed something, then you did something, and then you became something. So when I look at it from that viewpoint, if we take the when I decided to play hockey, for example, that was my initial vision. And then obviously believed, and I had to believe in myself that I could physically achieve that outcome. And then there's choices, and that's a massive one in people's life. We all have a choice. You make choices every single day, like we touched on earlier, whether I'm going to choose the muffin or I'm going to choose the apple. They're decisions that you can control. And then after that, you move on to the power, and that's the action item. And the first thing you need to do is come up with a plan on what action.
So you literally write stuff down, don't you? You're a big plan. You can't just have it all rolling around in your head.
Absolutely. Well, that's a construction background. Like you can't build a house if you don't have a set of drawings.
Yeah, true.
Right, to build on. And then you've got to do the work. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to do. None of it comes without doing the work. And then the next bit you can see is discipline. So you need to keep doing that work.
Attach an action to it, but
consistency.
Then do it.
Absolutely. And then followed by nutrition. So even that to me is what I'm feeding myself. So when I'm trying to initially learn how to skate, when I wasn't going to skate school, I was looking at YouTube videos and I was going along to the rink. I was talking to other people, trying to get advice. Then I'm feeding my mind that understanding. And then the last one's balance. And that's the one that I still struggle with. So I'm really good around all those things, but you need to stop. You need to rest and you need to pause. And then you need to evaluate, because there's been plenty of times that I've started doing something and I'm doing the work, but when you're evaluating, are you actually, the work that you're doing, is that getting you closer towards that vision? And quite often you need, then the last point is adjustment. And that's in a circle. So it's continuously getting, is the action I'm doing, and it all comes back down to that vision. And they're simple principles. So like you pointed out, when you're stuck sometimes, then you might just get to that evaluation point and you're understanding, is my vision clear? Do I actually believe in myself?
It's really important, isn't it? What the thing is too, like on a lot of podcasts, including yourself, you're someone who's achieved a lot, but one thing people don't talk about is their failures. Like, there's nothing wrong in failing at certain things, is there though? Because along this journey of achievement, you're going to have some failures. You just got to accept it, haven't you? Because I think a lot of people just don't end up taking that leap, or they don't, because they're so fear of the actual failing part of it. But it's, how do you handle that fear of like failure? Is it just something you just keep knocking down the brick wall? You just consistency? And actually, is it having that thought pattern of, though, it's okay if you fail at some stuff? I mean, it's like that Michael Jordan, right? Jordan's greatest success was that he failed over and over again until you succeed, right? Is it similar philosophy for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I fail almost every single day. And if I'm not failing, I'm not trying. But and when you do fail and you need to pick yourself up off the ground, what keeps me going is the vision.
And you just got to learn from those failures, right?
Absolutely.
Talking about that, like obviously with all your achievements, like Mulaney, which is amazing, M26 and where it's going, construction stuff. You've obviously had many struggles. What are some of your biggest struggles, mate, that you've had to overcome? Is it mainly, have we sort of touched on that a fair bit already, but is there anything we haven't spoken about with your struggles?
The ACL reconstruction that I had, that was a big one.
What was that from?
That was when I decided to play full contact hockey.
Are you kidding? Is that why you decided to give it up?
So that was 9 months of rehabilitation, so no skating for 9 months. I could get back on the bike after a few months, but that was a big one.
That's interesting. So lots of rehab.
The divorce was a huge struggle. The climb in my construction career was fraught with challenges. It's trying to learn from that. Like it's easier said than done, but you try.
What's your biggest advice then to people? Like, you've gone through some struggles. What's your advice to those people going through struggles today? Is it just knowing that there's light at the end of the tunnel? Is it just focusing on the next step? What's your advice with that?
No, exactly. Well, depending exactly what the struggles are, that's coming back to that vision. So if you're struggling to lose weight, for example, and you get down about it, you need to, again, go back to that evaluation piece, have a look at what you're doing, and if you are doing something. And then I have a focus on action goals versus results goals. And so it's,
That's really interesting. That's a good one. Touch on that, action goals. So it's just about having a goal to do something, not necessarily like it's going to get and achieve something at the end, but not being so focused on the result.
Correct. Well, you can't control the result, but you can control the action. So whatever it is, that goal that you want to reach, by having an action goal, that's something that you can control, and that might be, well, I'm going to do 26 minutes of exercise today and I'm going to maintain a certain heart rate. You can control that, and if you know that you do that and you do that consistently, then you're going to reach that particular result that you're chasing. But if you're trying to chase a result, then you get down on yourself that you're not making any progress. But if you're focusing on the action versus the result, you'll get the result if you maintain consistently that action.
That's awesome, Mags. I really like that. That's a big one. Another thing I wanted to touch on with you, like, we know you give a lot of time to others, particularly through M26, coaching, everything. You're very humble. You're always available to help those around you, including non-profit work. Touch on a bit of that and tell us a bit about that you do.
Well, I sit on 3 body corporate committees.
Yep.
I'm a board member at the Gold Coast Academy of Sport, and then I do some mentoring for a non-profit organisation here in Brisbane as well.
Really? Tell us about the Gold Coast and the sporting. So you're on the board with that?
Correct.
What is it again?
The Gold Coast Academy of Sport.
So what's that? What does that entail? What is it? All sports, Olympic sports? What is it?
They run programs down there. So at the moment you've got athletics, kids athletics. That's the only real stepping stone to the Queensland Academy of Sport. So there's no other transition. So kids, and they like I said, they run elite programs down there to assist kids to getting from that club level before they get into.
So these
the
are
state
kids
level.
in like the underage teams, and
they're all,
obviously you've been identified as good athletes.
They're all most of it's all under 18.
Yep. So what's your role with them?
Just a board member.
Yeah, right. Just consultancy, helping them out, and interesting, mate. That's awesome. Where's Magnus in 5 years, mate? You've achieved so much. What else is there?
Hopefully.
Should be retired soon. The male model from Mudgee.
No retirement plans. I guess I'd like to be travelling the world, spreading the M26 message.
That's awesome, mate. I love it. Mate, that's it for today. We're going to get you back to do another podcast on M26 in the future. But, mate, I want to finish with the quick fire questions. All right, you've put every one of your podcast guests through this. So now it's your turn. Are you ready for these?
Mate, I think so.
All right. Best advice you've ever received, mate?
Best advice I've ever received. Invest in yourself.
Cracker, I love that. Favourite food?
Fruit.
Which one?
Oh, banana.
Banana. I see. You're like a monkey, mate, when it comes to bananas. You love them. One word to describe yourself?
Consistent.
I would agree with that. Your biggest fear?
Not reaching my potential.
Oh, I love that one. That's powerful. For me, it's falling out of a helicopter with you. Number 5, mate. Give me 3 books that are a must-read. If you can remember the 3, because I know you read a lot.
Mindset. I think that's Carol Dwight.
Yep.
Slight Edge.
Yep.
By Jeff Olson, I think. And 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Awesome. And you've obviously read those multiple times, I'd imagine.
I'm currently rereading the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People for the 3rd time now.
Yeah, nice. So that's what. Yeah, that was actually going to be my next one. What are you currently reading? But you've answered that one. Very good, mate. Out of all the things you've done, what achievement are you most proud of today?
Personally, my son, and business-wise, Mulaney.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Yeah, 2 rippers. Biggest regret in life, if any?
I've made plenty of mistakes, but I'm not going to... I wouldn't say I regret. I think that I am who I am as a result of making those mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, this is an interesting one for you. Fondest memory from your childhood?
Probably family camping trips.
Yeah. Where'd you guys go as kids?
Well, we spent a lot of time at Stradbroke, North Stradbroke, and also down at Byron. And then we did plenty of bush one as well. So it's any one of those, mate. But
Geez, I can't even get you out camping now, mate. You're too soft these days. And your little cabin up at Mulaney. Oh, I've got my log-fired cabins now. No more camping for Magnus.
And I'm unapologetic about that too.
Stop it. That's good. Mate, favourite holiday destination and why?
Canada, ice hockey capital of the world.
It's interesting you bringing that up today, because I thought that's where you got your ice hockey fixation from, but it's not. So that was good to hear that story. I thought for sure it was Canada. Mate, another country you could live in and why?
I could live in a number of different countries. Be either Switzerland or Canada.
Yeah. Why do you love Canada so much?
Skiing, hockey, climate, people, food.
Yeah, you just love it?
Absolutely love it.
When do you normally go over there? Because I know you go there a fair bit.
Always in winter, generally February.
You don't want to go see them when it's warmer?
No? I do, but I haven't had that opportunity yet. As far as you only get so many holidays a year, and I'm not going to getting out of Brisbane during the heat wave.
Of course, because it's opposite. Yep. That's right, because you hate the heat. Now I know why you go over there. Very good. Mate, worst injury you've had? Probably your knee.
That was that ACL.
Yeah, tough them. What inspires and motivates you, mate?
People following their dreams.
Yeah, awesome. And on that, one person who has inspired you in life, and why did they?
I've had a lot of people that have inspired me over the years. I can't actually think of anybody in particular.
All right, we'll just put Conrad Leisman for that one.
Yep.
And David Goggins. Stay hard, brother. Mate, we'll probably touch this on in the other podcast as well, but in all of the adventures you've had, mate, what's the most challenging?
Everest Base Camp.
Yep. Did you do a fair bit of training for that?
I did heaps of training for it, and too much training. I wasn't obeying my own advice on the balance part, and overtrained and got crook just before we set off. So that was definitely a battle.
We're going to talk about that in the M26 podcast, mate. So we'll touch on that again. Your greatest strength?
Determination.
Yep. I'd say that about you, and discipline. A random fact, mate, that no one knows about you, apart from the dog leash that you had on you when you were a kid.
Random fact. Yeah, good question. Come back to that one.
All right, very good. All-time favourite movie?
Top Gun.
Stop it. Favourite sport to watch?
Be MotoGP or hockey.
Yeah. One thing you're working on right now to improve yourself?
This,
yeah. M26, I love it. What's your why, mate?
Just continuous improvement. Just want to get better.
It's a great message, Mags, that you're spreading, mate. I think that's a really big one, mate, for people. I think that should be everybody's why. I mean, everyone has their different whys. You and I have spoken about that, but that should definitely be in the top 3 for everyone. Continual improvement. I think if we can do that as human beings, mate, we'll all be better for it. So it's a great message. Mate, if you could have dinner with anyone in the world tonight, who would it be?
It'd be my son.
Yeah, nice, mate. Love that. Really, really good. Where would you go?
Probably
the Storybridge Hotel.
That wouldn't be the Storybridge Hotel. Probably be a steak restaurant.
Yeah, nice. So. Fat cow. Give them a plug. If you could do one activity for your fitness every day, mate, what would it be?
Have to be hockey.
Hockey. Yeah, you love that, don't you? Finish this sentence. I believe.
I believe if we put our mind to something, we can achieve anything.
Yeah, amazing. Mags, it has been an absolute pleasure, mate. Hopefully we got a bit of an insight into Magnus the man today. And like I said, mate, we're definitely going to get you back on to go through all things M26. Ripper, brother.
Mate, thank you. You've done an awesome job, mate. I'll have to get you back, do some co-hosting. You're a natural.
Absolutely, mate. Can't wait. Awesome, brother. See you next time.
Cheers. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode, we have a small favour to ask. Please take a moment to subscribe, review, and share this podcast with someone you think will appreciate it. Your support helps us reach more listeners, and we can continue delivering content that educates, inspires, and empowers you. Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay in the loop with all our latest news. 2024 is going to be a huge year, and we'll continue running our weekly Friday morning kayaking sessions on the beautiful Brisbane River, along with plenty more thrilling adventures, exciting activities and challenges are planned. We'd love for you to join us and be part of our growing community. Remember, success is all about consistency. And by investing 26 minutes exercising both your mind and your body every day, you too can become the strongest, fittest and healthiest version of you. So stay tuned and stay active.